Hello! Today we will be tackling the biggest group of wandering murder hobos this side of Sion. Yes, it's the Slaughterhouse 9. So, I won't actually be talking in detail about the Slaughterhouse 9 individually, their powers, all that stuff. I'll just go over the basics of how to deal with them as a group. Because there's a lot of interesting things, but when it comes to Slaughterhouse 9 as a group, there's only really two things you need to focus on. The first is that it revolves around Jack Slash. The man himself, the bullshit artist who has a fan reputation for being able to defeat any parahuman and can just be knocked out by a club by a person who doesn't. And so the reason Jack is so important is because he's literally the only reason the Slaughterhouse 9 has survived this long and why it's very infamous compared to just a normal group. This is really bothering me. However, it is still up to Jack because of the fact that he is so good with communicating with parahumans because of his power. He can completely manipulate them and just keep the other 8 members under his thumb and doing exactly what he wants them to. So Jack is the master manipulator. That's the one thing you should take out of this. He's incredibly smart and he picks his battles carefully. What I mean by this is he doesn't go charging everywhere. He doesn't go and run into any fight. He picks exactly situations where he has complete and utter control of the battlefield, where he can counter any possible cape that comes into contact with him, where he doesn't leave anything to chance. This is a very well-planned individual who uses that to cause the maximum amount of chaos at any given point in time. And he also does this to cultivate his image, because he's this fearless, charismatic, seemingly invincible character who projects his knife outline. Just makes it easier to cut things. You wouldn't expect this kind of person to do anything that impressive. And the fact that he does just adds to the mystery and horror of it all. And so, yeah. That's Jack. You can really classify most other members of the Slaughterhouse 9 compared to Jack. Shatterbird really likes Jack and wants to just follow him. Cherish wants to take Jack over and do this, yada yada yada. Crawler's just there because Jack keeps giving him challenges, stuff like that. And now we move on to the second character, which is important, Bonesaw. Riley, aka one of the most horrifying characters in Worm with the most horrifying backstories. So, how to deal with Bonesaw? Multiple methods. You saw it in canon itself. She got redeemed by Contessa's bullshit path to victory powers. She's a conflicted, traumatized character who still has this really disconcerting blend of maturity and immaturity. Like, she'll cut you open and just want to poke around in your brain and then just go and admonish anyone in the general vicinity who's swearing. And she's always wanted to be this good girl because it's like, it's one of the last things her parents said to her. I'm not sure if that's actually canon though. Someone please check that out. But so she's this really, really interesting character in the sense that she wants to do good, but she just got so horrifically mind-fucked by Jack, in essence, that she just has to survive. There's one other thing when it comes to the Slaughterhouse 9, when you deal with it. I haven't talked about how you should write the Slaughterhouse 9. Now, obviously, you can have it as a general obstacle, you can have it as a big boss, you could do a lot of things, but what you shouldn't do is include it just because it needs to be included because it was in canon. Because this is your story, and just limiting yourself in that way is not a good idea. Finally, the Slaughterhouse 9000. Ignore this part. No, seriously, if you're going to write a fanfiction, ignore this part. Because it's not relevant in the vast majority of cases. Because, it only happened because of a specific set of circumstances. Now, of course, if you don't decide to include anything about the Slaughterhouse 9 in general, you could still just have it in the background, as in suddenly there's just this group of things and it's just set up really cleverly and no one knows where the hell it came from, and just, it just turns out because the protagonist didn't interact with them, it just went on the course of canon. However, it's almost inevitable that in anything you write, you will want to have the protagonist do something that will change the outcome of this. They only do this for a certain number of reasons, one of which is that Jack hears from Cyan that hears about Cyan causing the end of the world in 2 years because of Dina's message to Taylor and a few other things. This only happens because they take Blaster's tech and like they raid Toy Box and all this other stuff. And it only happens because they sort of like think, well, it's our time to fuck with the world. So, if anything in that timeline is broken, if anything happens to stop them from escaping into a pocket dimension and freezing themselves for about 2 years, then it will never happen. So for the vast majority of cases where you want to include the Slaughterhouse 9, because let's face it, Jack is an incredibly charismatic, captivating, and interesting person if you write them right, this is almost never going to be an applicable part of your story. But that's up to you. If you guys want to try it, that's fine by me. But yeah, see you guys next week.